probably most of the people watching this probably haven't stuck to the majority of the goals we set at the start of the year. Why is that?
More so than people not wanting it enough, as our industry loves to scream at people, it's distractions. We forget. We become so focused on short-term pleasure, short-term gratification, that we forget what we said we wanted. And then when we have that reminder of what we wanted, we then experience more frustration because we're like, oh man, I haven't done anything towards that for the last 2 weeks, 2 months, or even longer.
Do you think the issue is less distraction and more perfectionism?
So it's a bit of all of those things, the distractions, the impatience, and we, more so now than ever, of course, we look at ourselves, we compare ourselves to other people that we have no business comparing ourselves to.
So after 3 weeks of not actually having an episode because of me moving back from Hong Kong and all the chaos and all the little projects that you've got going on, it's so good that we've managed to keep these weekly recordings, because we've managed to keep an episode a week going without actually having a conversation. So this is the first time I've seen you in a little while. So how's things for you? How have you been in the last 3 weeks?
So that shows the power of consistency and forward planning, that we did the work beforehand. So any break or emergency that came up, you've still got incredible episodes coming out. 3 weeks have been good. I've spent most of it down an AI rabbit hole where I started looking at, the way it can assist me for my business. And I've got to the point where I'm pretty sure I'm going to upload my consciousness to it at some point. But we're going to have to do an updated AI episode very, very soon, because the things we discussed on that episode are like down here. And in that short space of time, the possibilities of what AI is going to do for us are way, way bigger than either of us probably conceived. It's scary, but it's exciting at the same time. So we need a new episode.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I generally think that it is scary, but the possibilities of what we can do is insane. And I'm now starting to look at this now. It's like, could I start it using my my wedding speech? Ellie won't listen to this. Can ChatGPT help me with my wedding speech? Can ChatGPT help me come up with presents for bridesmaids and everything else? Like it is on my onboarding system. Can it rejig it to make me sound like Alex or Mosey? Like the possibilities are absolutely endless with AI. So I definitely think we need to do another one. But we had this idea for today. We're about halfway through the year. And at the start of the year, we did our goals for 2023. So I thought it could be good today to talk a little bit about, for people now maybe struggling with their goals and struggling to keep up with them. We can talk about a little bit about self-sabotage, why we do it, how we set long-term goals and get people back on track for the second half of the year. And maybe at the end, I'm going to look through my notes section and see if I can find what I wrote down. Talk about how well I've done on our 2023 beginner episode. So
Sweet.
You said you've got into this a little bit recently. So in your opinion, why, if probably most of the people watching this probably haven't stuck to the majority of the goals we set at the start of the year, why is that? Why do you think people don't stick to their goals?
The biggest one, more so than people not wanting it enough, as our industry loves to scream at people, is distractions. We forget. We become so focused on short-term pleasure, short-term gratification, that we forget what we said we wanted. And then when we have that reminder of what we wanted, we then experience more frustration because we're like, oh man, I haven't done anything towards that for the last 2 weeks, 2 months, or even longer. So we get distracted so easily, and your goals, not just the goal, but the process you're meant to follow to get you to that goal just becomes forgotten, put on the back seat, or something that's not as important anymore, something else takes over, not necessarily a positive thing. For me, that's the biggest thing that I've discovered with people when it comes to, I set this goal at the start of the year and I'm still nowhere near it. My first question is, what have you been doing, but what have you stopped doing? That's the bigger question I think needs answering.
Do you think the problem there is less about distraction? Although we've had plenty of episodes talking about how distractible people are these days, but do you think the issue is less distraction and more perfectionism? Because like distraction will delay our goals, but it's the frustration that comes from, well, I didn't get this done by the end of January. So now almost I feel like I have to get 11 months work of work in, 12 months work of work in 11. And now people get frustrated and they give up because it now becomes more of an overwhelming task. So do you think perfectionism is a thing? And why do people actually suffer from perfectionism? What actually is it?
Well, I think it's a bit of all of it. It's not just the distraction. Of course, there's the perfectionism as well. There's impatience thrown in there as well. It's rare that anyone doesn't know what to do, really. I've got a chat with some ladies on Sunday where we're talking about your belief system based around weight loss. Because if you think about it on paper, weight loss is kind of easy, right? It is as simple as focusing on nutrition, focusing on your exercise, your sleep, all the, they're easy boxes to tick. But our emotions, our beliefs, our environments, our distractions, all those things are the things that get in the way, okay, before you look at anything hormonal or under the system, etc. So it's a bit of all of those things, the distractions, the impatience, and we, more so now than ever, of course, we look at ourselves, we compare ourselves to other people that we have no business comparing ourselves to. So someone who can get a faster result, people that are potentially lying or skewing the figures a little bit on social media, we're so overwhelmingly just, our attention's just taken over by those sort of things that we lose sight of what actually is possible and what's actually realistic for us as an individual. You can't really expect the working single mother of 3 to get a 12-week transformation like someone else, like a PT is going to get. You can't expect that. But she doesn't know any different because all the advertising showing you can achieve this. Of course you can achieve this. You can achieve this without giving up the food you love and only going to the gym twice and whatever. And it's just a bit of all those things, I think.
I don't think coaches understand it either, though. Because coaches, I think coaches are, even though they are maybe wiser to the things that are happening in the industry, they have this almost in a way blind optimism that everyone can achieve the same result. Now, I have seen people, we have worked with people that are regular stressed out people with families getting crazy shape. And it does happen. But when you see things like busy individuals without trying to give them any of the foods they love, you're almost encouraging people into your business that are not going to stick to these things. Or you don't actually have the system in place to help someone who is actually busy or help someone that is like, if you want to not give up the foods you love and you're super busy, you're already asking for people to have time issues. And if you don't have an answer for that thing, this is going to be a problem. And if you don't want someone to give up the food they love, then there's going to be a learning curve in terms of tracking the food and be able to understand those foods, which most coaches don't have resources for. So they're not prepared for these clients when they come in the door. So now we get these people that maybe have sold the dream through social media, these coaches that don't set the expectations well enough to what they actually need to do and what sacrifice needs to make in their life. They don't have the resources to help educate these people on their problems. And because of all of those things, the client either fails or succeeds and then rebounds. And then we end up in this cycle now of self-belief where they go into this dieting feature more than before thinking, I'm only going to gain the weight back. How is this? How is this going to be different from last time? Why will I not fail this time? And I see so many people don't put the foot on the gas because they're worried that, okay, if I don't apply myself, then I can't fail. And one thing I always often say to my clients is like, well, the only way you can fail is if you don't apply yourself. Because even if there's a bump in the road, as long as you keep going, it's not a failure. It's a chapter in the story. It's not the end of the book. And I said a quote before we came on air that I got from a shout out to Jake Carter from the Institute of Health. And he said it on his 5-day blood work course I did, is most people don't achieve their goals because their goals are much larger than their self-belief. And I love that quote. And it's like, right, what we need to do is we either need to be able to scale back the actions that we give people so it now lines up where their belief is. And then when they hit that goal, now their belief's a little bit higher, or we do the groundwork to try and work on where that belief is.
Massively so. What you just said there reminds me of something Jordan Peterson said. This quote blew me away. Paul Morton loves it, and Paul Morton embodied some of this into his own training. That a lot of people don't set goals because it automatically specifies conditions for failure. And we would rather not even start to avoid the risk of failure than get us halfway and fail. So a lot of people aren't setting goals until the pain is too deep. And even then, they're not really setting a goal as such. Someone who's been told by a doctor, you need to lose weight, or just, it's not really a goal, is it? It's not really someone who's, not had sex with their wife for however many months, or if not years, based on around their energy and their physique. And the one time every decade they do it, the lights are off and clothes are on, things like that. It's not really a goal to really work towards. It's just an entire, quite a different quality of life, which can seem so far off compared to the pain that they're in now. None of these things are going to be fixed in a couple of weeks, not necessarily a couple of months. Some things might take a hell of a long time, depending on your current reality, your current environment, and your current habits and behaviors, and your beliefs around those habits and behaviors. That's why, again, just in terms of the system of weight loss, it's kind of easy, but you've got all these other things to battle, which is where, coaching really, really comes in handy when you've got a decent coach, because they can help you steer through those different environments that you're experiencing. But like I say, if you don't, it's easy to say I've never failed if you don't start, if you don't set the goal, if you don't do that introspection to see what pain you are in.
100%. And I think one of the big things that, anyone that's listened to me for a while, is on my courses or follows me on social media, will know that I'm a big fan of systems. I think systems are so important. And if you're a coach to this and go, right, where do I help people with their mentality and their adherence? It's such a minefield in terms of like, well, are we always just putting out fires rather than addressing the root cause? Or is it, do we go down the neurotransmitter route, or we go down procrastination or overwhelm or supplementation, or there's all these things that potentially, meditation, journaling, all these things could potentially help our mindset. But I think, like, when I look at functional medicine, I look at the cell first, right? This is going to go a bit sciencey, but you'll understand where I'm going with this. If a cell is the smallest thing we can influence in our body. If you have healthy cells, we have healthy tissues. If you have healthy tissues, we have healthy organs. Healthy organs, we have healthy organ systems, and then we have a healthy person. In the same thing, like, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but belief is, in my view, is almost the overarching thing of mindset. Because let's think of the other things that I think come underneath this: overwhelm, imposter syndrome, procrastination, perfectionism. Like, if I took your family hostage and says, I want you to make £1 million, or I want you to get to 10% body fat in a short period of time, you would make it work, because now your why has become greater than these actions. If I said to you that no one judged you, it's physically impossible now, I've given you this thing that no one's going to judge your work ever, how much more action would people take? It's our belief system that becomes the problem. Because if we look at perfectionism essentially is, right, I fear that my work is going to be judged, and I don't believe my work is good enough, so I'm going to have to make double hard that it's perfect. Imposter syndrome: I don't believe that I am as good as X person here, or I look as good as this, or I couldn't achieve that. Overwhelm, right? Most of overwhelm, it could just be because you put too much on your plate, but in my case, more often than not, overwhelmed because I don't believe I'm the person that can work out this complex issue, or I don't believe I'm the person that can run this business, so why am I starting? All these things filter back up into where your belief system is. Would you agree with that statement? And if so, how do we start to piece together changing someone's belief system?
Massively so. But what you listed there, a lot of it comes down to, like you said, your belief system. A large percentage of that is based around what are other people going to think, or what are other people thinking. And you also have to recognize a large percentage of your belief system has been created from other people. No one really is that sovereign in their thoughts that they've created their entire individual belief system. It doesn't happen, right? So how do we start changing our belief system? We have to question it. We have to identify your current beliefs based around whatever area it is. You have to take some time to sit down and write these out based around what area of your life you're in pain. You have to identify them, then you have to challenge them. Is this belief serving me? Is this habit, is this behavior serving me compared to what I say that I want now? And then we rewire. This is exactly what I'm going to talk about Sunday. We have to put a new belief that doesn't just happen out of nowhere. Beliefs are an ingrained thought with emotion attached. It's not just a thought. So we have to ingrain a new emotion, whether that's an emotion based around moving away from the pain that you're in now or towards this pleasure that you foresee. So you have to have an end goal. We then take on the habits, the behaviors, the actions of someone who has that thing that we want. or it is just the thing that's going to entirely change that environment that you're in. And then it's rinse and repeat. The issue is with a diet plan, with a workout program, we get the plan and we go, right, let's dive in. I'm super excited. I'm going to start this off. And what happens? Life gets in the way. We get tired. We get distracted. Something else comes in. Weight's not moving as quickly as we want. Bench press felt tough this week when it was easy last week. All these different things, because nothing's linear. Nothing moves in a straight line. All the little ups and downs come along, and then the overwhelm creeps in. The imposter syndrome creeps in. All these different conditions, these different labels, which are just essentially another way of labeling how you're thinking about where you are at that exact moment in time. So again, this is why it's easy to be to say this is why daily journaling works. Daily journaling with intent works. Questioning your beliefs, questioning your emotions. What was good? What was bad? This was bad, so what can we do differently tomorrow to make sure this doesn't happen? Or to make sure we manage our emotions around this happening again. Have to take the time, which sounds like a lot of work, right? It's not 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, if that style works for you. You have to constantly be questioning these belief systems. And we can go into other realms. You can go into the realm of politics. Most politicians, granted now I follow less and less and less politicians than I've ever done before. On Threads, I don't follow a single political account. But to be fair, I don't know what I follow on Threads because I've only done it with my Fat Loss account. On Twitter, I follow from both sides. Because I think it's important, especially in the political realm, to not go down one path, to not stick to one dogma, because that's where things get really sketchy. So if you look at what's happening from both sides, there's always going to be something you can take from both sides. A lot of people won't like hearing that, but there is. There's more. We have more in common than we do differently. The different things are the ones that are further afield, further at the end of each spectrum, right? But when you look at the main things everyone wants, it's kind of all in the middle anyway. But if you don't look at what the other side's saying or what the other side has, you just get stuck in that echo chamber. You get stuck in this environment that may not be serving you based on the belief system that's been infiltrated into your brain by other people, by other sources, by other media. And the way to change that takes questions, world-class questions, which you and I both know.
There is so much I want to unpack in that. I want to go into that media thing first. It's interesting because I think there are more and more people that hold weak opinions strongly rather than strong opinions loosely. And this is like, I think it's because it's been so long since, because I love a debate, right? I like you. I want to hear both sides of the story. I tend to look at people as no one's inherently good or inherently evil. There are pros and cons of everybody. Like if I get into Andrew Tate debates, right, people immediately go, well, stop defending that man. I'm not necessarily defending Andrew Tate, but I'm saying this is the stuff about his message I like, and this is the stuff about the message I don't. And I don't think you have a fair argument unless you can say at least one thing on both sides, because no human in the planet, and sorry, this might get me in trouble, but someone like Adolf Hitler, one of the universally worst names. You think of bad people, you think Adolf Hitler or Osama bin Laden, right? But I bet there's someone out there, there's a little kid on the street in Afghanistan who Osama bin Laden helped them through some struggle that they had. He's not, every part of his personality is not evil. We are complex. And I think people are boiled down to, in this soundbite world, simplistic ways of looking at individuals. And before, when I got into debates with people that disagree with me, which I love, I used to have really interesting debates. And now I get into debates with people, and I can't remember the last time I had someone disagree with me in a debate. And maybe I'm not seeking them out enough. Like I try to, but maybe I associate with people that almost much agree with me. But when I do have a debate with someone that disagrees with me, it always comes down to this. Have you listened to more than 30 seconds of the person you're trying to tell me is wrong? And it's been so long since I've had someone that said, yes. Do you like Joe Rogan? No. Have you listened to an episode? No. What's the point of this debate? Like, I'm not, and at no point am I saying that if you listen to him, you would like Joe Rogan. But I'm saying that you don't know the other side. You're hearing someone else's opinion and now carrying that on as your own. The BBC don't like X, so I don't like X. Well, are you the BBC? Do you take photos of children all the time? Like, this sort of... But like, there's so much less of individuality in terms of opinion. And I think then bring it back to the people's individual goals. We've said this before. People don't know who they are.
No.
You know?
Massive identity crisis. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, trying to find your sense of identity, that's a 2-hour episode in itself. Maybe we do one time. Maybe we do one time whilst on 4 grams of dried mushrooms. That would be amazing. But
That'd be an in-person
for
episode.
now,
We have to get that on a
that
camera.
would be an in-person episode. Why are they in a field? Got to do it. Got to do it in the right place.
Otherwise, Riverside in my mum and dad's house in my bedroom, mushrooms, do an episode of Robb for 4 hours. But
that's how we used to do it anyway. So why not? Why change it? But yeah. And again, your belief systems form your identity, because you will then act. Your personality is a result of your personal reality. You change your personal reality, your personality changes. We've seen this with people. We've seen this with members of our peer group who have refused to change over however many years. We have seen this with people that do change, that upgrade or go downhill, upgrade themselves. That I'd like to think, I didn't know you 10 years ago, but I'd like to think you're a largely different person from what you were 10 years ago. Yeah.
Huge.
And if you weren't, it's kind of worrying, right? It's kind of worrying if you weren't. Like, what have you been doing with that time? What have you done to try and grow, to try and get a better experience of life, whatever the hell it is?
I mean, watching YouTube and masturbating, but that's basically about it.
10
like most blokes. 22? That's all I did at 22.
Okay, 22 is that all it is?
But going into like your belief system, like involving your actions, I think this is really important because, again, it goes back to this thing of having a system. Like, right, how many ways are there to, like, people will say these are things that you must do to improve your mental health? Meditation, journaling, affirmations, therapy, ayahuasca, like this, collect, insert self-help thing here. But if we know that this overarching first thing we need to sort on is our belief system, so what is the other thing we're going to do sort of the belief system? In the same way, the overarching thing is I want to lose 10 pounds to have a set of abs on the beach because I don't want my friends to laugh at me. Cool. So we now have the overarching goal. Now, rather than having these things that seem eclectic of different things, do I do Wim Hof breathing or do a journaling or do a meditation? You now realize these are all different severities of the same thing. If I want to lose 1% of 1.5% of my body weight per week, I have to do X, Y, and Z. There are maybe more extreme actions that I have to do 0.5. But they're all things that get me closer, scaling versions of the same goal. So if I look at ayahuasca, is an immediate extreme, the fast. It's the extreme protein sparing modified fast of belief change, right? It's the clenbuterol of belief change. Whereas then if you scroll that down, that's therapy. That is hiring a really, really good quality physique coach and having a goal put in place for you to solve that. Whereas journaling, for the sake of argument, is like going on Google or buying the self-help book and trying to piece together it yourself. They're all taking you in the same direction, just of different levels of severity. Ayahuasca will get you there in a weekend, whereas journaling might get you there in 5 years. But they're all taking you that first step. And it's just when you decide what action you're going to take, it's just committing to said action.
It's worth remembering the time scale of what you're going to continue to do these things for. You can meditate every day. You can meditate multiple times per day. You can journal multiple times per day. The higher you go up that reward scale or the speed scale, the less often you can do it. You couldn't do ayahuasca every weekend. You couldn't do mushrooms every single day. Even then, the microdosing, they're still like, if you're microdosing and you're feeling major differences, you might be going over the microdose. You might be doing a bit too much. You're not going to be feeling certain things. So the bigger the effects you get from it, the less often you can do it, which shows for most people, the easier thing to do is these little things that you can do every single day that might not feel like they're doing anything on the day, but over time you can look back and go, oh, Jesus, wow, fucking hell, look at this. I'd love to, when I find them, I'd love to dig out my old journals and see what I've written in there that has materialized. And I use that very, very carefully. I'm not talking in a law of attraction, woo-woo, manifesting way. I mean, what have I put into action that has allowed me to be able to do X, Y, and Z that I wouldn't have thought about if I didn't write them down to begin with, based around a brainstorming session of figuring out what I actually want. And then looking at, am I doing the things that are going to get me what I want? Am I thinking the things that are going to get me what I want? Without taking the time to do that, how can you ever... Generally, like, I'll probably nicked this off of Paul Moore, but in that respect, journaling is like your sat nav. Like you can get in the car and turn the sat nav on, but unless you put an address in there, what's that sat nav going to do for you? Fuck all, really. So you've got to put the address in and then follow the steps that it's giving you and listen.
And also, I think,
then, but
yeah, I also think when it comes to things like journaling as well, like when we look at that scale, right, the slower and the more gradual the approach you choose to changing your belief system, the less overwhelming rave reviews you're going to get from the people that do it. Now, there's some people out there that will tell you that meditation and journaling are game changing, but you have to be very self-aware to realize the improvements you make from those things. Ayahuasca, on Monday you wake up feeling different, and you go like, and I haven't done it, but like, you know, like I've done like psilocybin and things like this, and I go, okay, cool. You wake up feeling different, but then if you look at like journal, I just said this before we came on air. I finished my last of the main body. I'm going to probably do the momentum, but of TMP. So I've done 6 months of therapy with Total Mental Performance. Definitely follow those guys on Instagram. They're absolutely amazing, especially if you're a coach. But I did my last session and I reflected, but essentially on how far I've come. And it's not just therapy, but I've moved back home. I've taken my business online. There's loads of things I've put in place. But I look back. And as I was doing the therapy, I didn't realize, and this is quite an extreme approach. This is closer to the ayahuasca thing than the journaling thing. But I kind of go, I didn't go from depression to happy. I just gradually, even 0.5% improvements over the case of 6 months, that now I look back and go, oh shit, I was in a bad place at the back end of last year. And I'm not. And I didn't even notice that really had happened until I had that point to go back and reflect on it. So if someone told me a week ago, without having that reflection, is therapy working for you? I wouldn't be able to give a particularly fantastic answer. Yeah, it's good. But then I go, oh my God, it's actually made a difference, just gradually over time. Like journaling, in 10 years' time, if you might not think journaling's been working, but you've just done it because you know you should. And you look back and look at the old journal, like you said, and go, oh my God. And that's the thing that keeps you doing it. So I think with the slower approaches, you almost have to have a bit more blind faith that it will work.
Definitely. You have to link it to, this is part of the process going to get you towards that end goal. And what have people done before you? So I'm in Paul Moore's program, and he's the one that introduced us to proper journaling. Before that, journaling to me was just spilling your thoughts out on paper, Tim Ferriss style. That's what he kind of spoke about way back before journaling became this popular thing. Tim Ferriss was one of the first to kind of bring it to the mainstream, kind of based around Stoicism as well. And it was only really Paul Moore that taught me a system, like saying, for journaling, how journaling can serve me. And the journaling is answering questions, creating plans and reviewing what you've done. And therefore you've got a hard copy. It's like a weekly meeting with yourself. Like you would do with your team. You're having a meeting with yourself. What worked well this week? What didn't work well? What can we do differently this time? Let's put something in the diary every single day to make sure that we're doing these things to make it happen. But again, at that moment in time, you wouldn't see, if journaling was 100% the secret to success, on day 1, you'd be excited. Day 2, you might be excited. By day 7 to 14, excitement's gone because you're just writing on paper. But what it's doing for you in terms of your mind management, in terms of your general scheduling as well, if you do it intently in terms of reviewing so you can avoid the bad behaviors that are going to stop you getting there, then 100%, of course, it's going to get you to that point of success. But you're not going to see that, certainly not on a day-to-day basis, but you notice the difference when you've not been doing it. I'm the same with my therapist. I see my therapist every fortnight. And when we've had to skip sessions for however long, I notice the difference.
Yeah.
And it's not just a case of wanting to talk, because my therapist is great. We don't really talk about old stuff. We don't really talk about the past. She's kind of keeping me in check like a personal trainer would do. We're way beyond that stage of, what happened 2 years ago, what happened years before that as well. And I don't think I'd be utilising it well if that was the case. And that's why therapy doesn't work for a lot of people, because it is just talking about the past all the time, which puts you in a negative state. But when I don't have those sessions with her, I feel the difference. I notice it. And then when one is finally booked, there's almost like a sense of relief. Not necessarily excitement, but the acknowledgement I've done something that's going to serve me well here, that's going to help me and hopefully make the next 2 weeks a little bit easier for me as well. But do I ever walk out of one therapy session and go, that was the best thing ever, I'm so glad I did that, this is going to help me with my... No, of course not. But if I were to have, I don't know, some sort of recording or something of however many I've done over the last 2-3 years, I'd like to imagine, well, it's not even worth saying I'd like to imagine, I 100% have grown a fuck ton from those first sessions. Entirely different person, entirely different capability, entirely different belief system, entirely different way of handling my life and the things that happened to me in my life as well. But I wouldn't have realised that at the time. At the time, I was just going, I need this because if I don't do this, the alternative's a bit dark, right? But you don't see that when you first sign up to these things.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to like a good therapist. You're saying it can be a negative experience if you're going back to like negative emotions, but it's having the system. And what appealed to me about TMP rather than a lot of therapists is that I knew the journey before going in. I knew the first 4 calls were going to be very much going back in my time and see what's holding me back. Yeah. And we did a drill, and you've probably done the same, where you hover over your timeline. What's the earliest time where you feel friction, when you feel this feeling that you're feeling right now? And I looked at bullying. I looked at the first crush I ever told I fancied them and they laughed in my face. I looked at my first breakup. And that was hard work. But I knew this groundwork now was there to serve me in this next bit where we look at, right, let's get some structure in your life. Let's look at what you want to achieve. Let's put those things in place. And then the final section of the program was like, right, let's teach you how to thrive. Let's teach you how to business skills. Let's teach you financial literacy. Let's teach you these stuff, right? Which I know by far not mastered. But now I'm certainly there's a bit in my last call where I talked about stress of a couple of things that was going on in my life. And he went, what you just said there is total mental performance. Throw in the brand title. Very good branding. But he basically said to me, like, when I had it stress, I wasn't ranting and raving about the stress. I was like, look, that's stressful. I'd rather that's not the case. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. It's life. And he goes, yeah, that's it. It's not about trying to avoid negative emotions. It's understanding that's part of life and just not being fazed by them as much. And like one thing I sort of want to touch on is this back, I think we spoke about this before, back an event called the Waking Up Weekend. And I'm going to look now, I'm back in the UK if these things still exist here in Bradford. But they talk about the brain as like every person's brain has a process. So if your belief system right now, your belief about whether you can get in shape or how good looking you are, or what your views about talking to women, from your actions that happen to every one of us listening to this, me, Rob, everybody, our brain has created a process, a thought pattern, a way of thinking from the things that we've influenced ourselves, media, people's reactions, stuff like this. And that process will influence the way that we act. So we will act in a certain way according to our process. Now, how do we change that process so we make better decisions and better actions? Well, we do it by changing the actions we make. Now, that may say counterintuitive. Well, if our brain and our process affects our actions, how do we actually change those actions when they're already influenced by our brain? And it's by changing and reframing and creating a new reference point. So I call it a pattern break. And I always use this example, and I think it's really, really good, is when I had a process growing up that was horrendous chatting to women. I've always had a thing about keeping connections and making good connections. That's always been my hang up with friends and everything else. And I always thought that I wasn't interesting enough. No one would like, and it's because that first person laughed in my face. I had that first long-term breakup, which I took really badly, to getting turned down a lot. So it meant that I put these women on a pedestal. You were 10 out of 10. I just couldn't chat to you. I'm not good enough. And because I did that, I didn't speak to people when I went on a night out. So then every time I went home alone, I reinforced that process because I wasn't taking action. So while going up to that girl would be terrifying, I had as a dating coach. I didn't have a dating coach. I listened to one on YouTube. It said to me, or said on the video, a girl can only be 5 out of 10 on looks alone. The other 5 is made up of, is she cool? Is she interesting? What she do for a living? And nothing changed. I was still scared to speak to that person, but just changing the reference point from that's a 10 out of 10 to you're a 5. Let's see if you make the other 5 was just enough to, let's say 5 times out of 10, say a first word that I wouldn't have said before. So I now start, and I get rejected a bit, but I start to do it more and more and more. It becomes less and less scary. And over time, I get more positive responses, whether that is, I manage to strike a rapport with somebody, or whether it's just a conversation and move on. over time, gradually, step by step, my process changes. So if you're listening to this right now and going, well, it's all well and good talking about these things about journaling and meditation, ayahuasca, but I have a belief system I can't get in shape. Well, what could you say to yourself? What reframe could you say that gets you going, right, there's no point tracking macros because I'm a failure anyway, to going, right, I'm going to track one meal and see how many calories it is. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's not too bad. I can do that next time. And then you lose a pound. And then there's got a bit of positive feedback. And then you do it again. And you do it again. And those small steps, eventually, your process will change. So now you embody the person. Because I think a lot of times in the self-development world, we talk about who's the person you want to be. And you need to embody the actions of that person. But in turn, that's almost counterintuitive. Because if I go, I want to live like Alex Hormozi. Alex Hormozi is like probably almost a billionaire. Oh, cool. Great. That's so far away from my consciousness that it's intimidating as fuck. But if I go, right, what reframe could I have if I can just get up an hour earlier and work? And eventually I make 100 grand. I'm like, oh, fuck, I made 100 grand. Maybe I can make 2. The game has changed.
That's it. It's just ticking those smaller boxes along the way. You've got to still set lofty goals, though, because mediocre goals will never inspire you to take action. But then there's that difference is, I'm going to keep referencing him so much. It's because I'm in his swag. That's what it is. I'm in Paul Moore mode today. We're in Paul Moore's swag. You've got setting unrealistic goals, but they have to have a realistic pathway to get there. So Alex Hormozi is about to be a billionaire. Can we say anyone can become a billionaire? Well, in a way, we can. If you're willing to start doing the things that Alex Hormozi did at the age Alex Hormozi did, but I mean, it's all, as he's quite open with as well, it's all ups and downs as well. Can you get your podcast as big as Stephen Bartlett's and Chris Williamson's? If you're willing to put the consistency in and get the quality of guests and the quality of interview and do it on a regular basis, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? So can I look like Henry Cavill? No, because I haven't got Henry Cavill's genetics. I wish Henry Cavill's parents gave birth to me as well, because then I've got a stronger chance of looking like Henry Cavill. But can I get myself in the best possible shape naturally that I can? If I'm willing to put the work in, if I'm willing to tick those boxes. And 10 years down the line, you'd be amazed how differently you could look. Man, if I look at photos of myself at 21, early 20s, stick, absolute stick. Some people might say I'm still a stick now, that's cool. But I'm a slightly bigger stick.
You're a log.
I'm a bit more of a log now.
Yeah. But I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think sometimes we set these goals, if you go super realistic, like I don't like SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time framed. People like aren't familiar with it. But the problem I find is like you make these goals overly realistic. I'm like, I'm going to lose a pound this week. Oh, fucking hell, I ain't getting to the gym. It's tired. A fucking pound. Who gives a fuck? Whereas if I care about the goal enough, if there's something that excites me and makes me want to get out of bed, I'm going to take more action. But but I think people tend to look at Everest before they look at base camp. People look at a 12-week transformation, see the before and afterwards, or they see the gold medal, and they don't see week 1 to week 2, week 1 to week 3, week 1 to week 4, week 1 to week 5. And some of the things I involve in my practice, and coaches feel free to steal these, is that on day 1, I go, right, what's the not the realistic goal? Because I see so many coaches set goals that are, this is where I want you to be in 12 weeks, because 12 weeks is the package. No. A doctor doesn't set you, like, if you're in America and have private healthcare and you get diagnosed with cancer, but you only have a small budget, right? He's not going to set you the medication for your budget because you're going to die. He's going to set you the medication to keep you alive. And we work on how to get the budget for it later. So if you set the goal based on 12 weeks, no one's going to be excited for it. But if I set the goal where you really want to be, and then I zoom that back, right, here's what I want you to be in the first 12 weeks, and here's what I want you to be in the first 4, and here's what I want you to do today to tick those boxes. You see that journey. And then in check-ins, I get people to stitch their photos. I know it sounds like work I should be doing, but I get them to do it themselves. So week 1 to week 2, week 1 to week 3, week 1 to week 4. The extra 10 seconds of work. One, makes it easier for me to do checking so I can see it. I'm not scrolling up and down WhatsApp. But also, it allows them to see how far they've come every single week. So when they have a bad week, when they have one of those weeks going, the distraction happens or life gets busy, they go, oh my God, I was a stick and I'm now a log. And that could be the thing that gets them to take the next set of actions, which is monstrous. So like, to finish off this episode, because I know you've got to head off relatively shortly, I think it'd be good to reflect, because I think some people might not, people that know us, right? But I think a lot of people look at people online, even people that aren't, maybe we are impressive, I don't know, but maybe even people that come across like the average Joe, and they go, well, Simon doesn't have these problems, or Rob doesn't have these problems. He looks like he's got it all together. He's a funny child on Instagram. He's like he's got it all switched on. I can't be as charismatic as Rob, or I can't have teeth as good as Simon, or whatever you think, right? Paid a lot for these teeth. And I just want to say that we're in the same boat. We have not done all our goals. So I'm going to go through mine. If you remember some of yours, we'll go through them afterwards. So remember these. So goals 2023. Start a daily journal on YouTube. Initially unedited webcam screen record on top of 2 lessons each day, daily thoughts, and wondering, as well as upcoming podcast interviews, courses, coaching, etc. How many episodes have I done? None. So there's a big cross in the lose column. It's still on the intention, though. And I've done other things. But I think this is a thing to do. And like, I appreciate that, but I haven't succeeded in that. So now this is maybe my kickstart to start doing some YouTube videos. Number 2, go through TMD therapy and take action on the needed tasks. Here I am in a much better place. Get myself back in shape, sub 12% body fat before the wedding, and achieve a strict overhead press and 100 kilo deep squat. I can do probably a 40 kilo overhead press. I can do a 100 kilo deep squat. Well, deep for my structure. I am not sub 12% body fat. I have 4 weeks to go. Achieve a successful first intake of coaching confidence and raise either a level 2 or a yearly graduates program that has a rolling cost, discussion group, and one-to-one mentoring. I have done that. Start a live podcast either at a homemade studio or rented studio when I move back to the UK. Perhaps a What Culture Mind Pump style YouTube show with Rob, with challenges, forfeits, reviews, and more. Right. Well, before we came on air, we talked about meeting up in London next week and maybe seeing if we can put some of this into practice. That's still there. And then last one was talk to Chris Bavin about TV roles. I have not done that yet, but now I'm back in the UK, I might. So I've probably got about a 50% ratio on what I set out to do. So that, actually looking back, that is better than I thought opening it. Like, what do you remember about yours? Because I think you, if I remember correctly, one of yours was to be in enough shape to do that trail in better stead, if I got this right, than you did last year. And you have just finished it, right? So how did it go?
So that was a different event, sadly. In terms of the goals that I was setting, I didn't set aside the time to even think about buying the ticket and the kit I needed for that event. So that goal has now moved to a much, much worse time to do it in the middle of January, when that mountain's going to be covered in snow and it's going to be freezing. It's going to be even worse. And I view that as my punishment for not doing it, right? That's karma in action. What did happen was I still went out for walks every single day. There's not been a single month or week where my average was under 10,000 steps at least. I started adding a bit more cardio into my routine. So when it came to a couple of weeks ago, my my in-person quarterly event for the year, where last year was the fan dance, this year was with the Through Dark squad, doing what I thought was going to be a 17-kilometer hike that turned out to be a 17-kilometer run. And I'm someone who's never even run a 10K, let alone 17 kilometers, in boots along Jurassic Coast with various commando-style beast things along the way. I wasn't amazing at it. I certainly wasn't at the front, but had I not done that work leading up to that point, I would have been right at the back. I would have felt a lot worse about it. I would have embarrassed myself as a personal trainer. It would have been a non-enjoyable experience in the slightest. Instead, I had a few mindset things to overcome whilst I was doing it, and I had a whale of a time. It was absolutely amazing. And I want to do more of that sort of stuff now, which resets some of the goals that I've set earlier in the year as well.
Oh man, that's
had I not started
awesome.
doing the work, that would have been a lot worse.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. And one of the things I want to do at some point, this is I got on Facebook memory the other day of when I walked the length of Wales for charity, and I've said to some point I'm going to do something like that again, like this coast to coast or whatever else. So I might start looking at things, and if you want to do more hikes things, I'm involved. To count me in. I'm very out of shape, but I'll try it. Cool. So every time we've done this, we've asked you which one you want to promote. But I think today we're going to promote something a little bit different, because you have a talk going over this exact topic I don't know the girls. I want to follow them. So run us through this talk, this event, how people can hear this. By the time this goes out, it's probably been and gone. But they can catch the replay.
And it will be replayed. It will be recorded. It's a company called, well, not even a company, but they're called Rose Collective. And there's some ladies that have started up this collective and bring in speakers to help ladies upgrade their own life financially, business-wise, skills-wise, spiritually, relationship, whatever, right? They're doing some really good work and they're really starting to grow. And I'm on a talk where I'm going to give a 20-minute rundown through kind of what we spoke about today, belief systems, how you've developed those belief systems to begin with, and what we can do to change those belief systems, mainly based around how they're affecting your body. And then there's going to be like a little 20-minute panel at the end for questions. Some are preloaded, some could come out of nowhere to really test if we know our stuff or not, or to make things a little bit more relevant to the people that are watching. Everyone's welcome to join. The link is in my bio on my Fastlane page and in my personal if you follow me there as well, but that's still private for now. So on my Fat Loss Fastlane page, you'll find the link for that. And that's where I'll be posting the link for the replay as well if you do watch this later down the line.
Awesome. So yeah, I might come in and just deliberately throw in some hard questions just to keep you on your toes. But when is that for? When is actually the live show?
4 p.m. this Sunday. So that is Sunday the 16th. Sunday the 16th.
Awesome, right? Guys, absolutely check that. That is absolutely going to be 100% worth it. And also for the people who follow my page and maybe want to get into the bit more male-centric version of this, we're going to get Rob coming on and doing a guest lecture for all the team at Coaching Confidence. And we're going to have some tickets on sale for you guys. If you want to join in with Rob and you're not on the Coaching Confidence yet, you'll still have an opportunity to. So by that point, by the time this comes out, we're probably just about starting promoting that. So reach out to either me or Rob and we'll get things in place for you.
Boom.
Rob, chat to you next week.
My man.